right. Thank you very much for being here. It's a real honor to have AMCAO hosting this session called Water and Sanitation Services for Sustainable Development in Africa. We really want to thank them for bringing together these amazing experts from Africa, and also to have this session in like this engaging session with the participants. So Emmanuel, I think the mic is yours for this session.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Laura. My colleague, Dr. Paul, would serve or stand in as the moderator for this session, and over to him. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel, and many thanks, Laurie. Please excuse my noisy background. Unfortunately, I'm in an environment that is less controlled. Once again, I welcome you all to this session in which the African Ministers' Council on Water, AMCAO, is partnering with the World Youth Parliament on Water to bring you a menu of water and sanitation issues, particularly pertaining to youth involvement in developing the sanitation and water sector in Africa, and most importantly, to bring to you a list of presentations that will broadly speak to the continental efforts at different scale with regards to sector development. So I'll be your moderator for the session. My name is Paul Orengo, Director of Programs. With that, without further ado, I wish to welcome the first presenter to give us opening remarks. And this will be done by Mr. Emmanuel Uguru. Mr. Emmanuel serves as the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Support Officer at the African Ministers' Council on Water, AMCAO. Mr. Emmanuel influences high-level decision-making with data from the 55 African Union member states for increased prioritization of water and sanitation sector development, as well as its equitable and sustainable access in the continent to achieve much desired maximum impact. Mr. Emmanuel, welcome for the opening remarks.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. And thank you, colleagues, for this opportunity. Organizers of the World Youth Parliament on Water, representative from the International Secretariat for Water, representatives of the United Water World Water Forum, distinguished youths from across the globe, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great pleasure to be opportune to give this opening address. This is in itself a clear evidence that what we as youth have been advocating for our voices to be heard at key strategic and high-level platforms has become a reality. And I am most delighted for this opportunity to give this opening address. Thank you. On behalf of AMCAO, I want to sincerely express our profound appreciation to the International Secretariat for Water for this opportunity to organize the very first edition of the Africa Focus session during its World Youth Parliament on Water General Assembly. This is a great opportunity for Africa to showcase what the water and sanitation space looks like, and especially as it pertains to the issues on youth. We already know all the existing data on the percentage and the population of youths globally and in Africa, but then permit me to just emphasize on this, because this would guide our discussion and mostly the outcome that would emanate from this meeting, this session. 40% of youths globally are below the age of 25. But then in Africa, 60% of this population, this young population of below 25 people, are those sets of people that are the population of Africans. And then from these statistics, we know that development cannot be fully achieved if the young population is segregated from the efforts for development, key development issues. I would want to mention just three areas or arguments that borders on the demography of youth. As we speak, over 50% of the whole population of Africa is falls under the category of 18 to 35. And then on development arguments, you have this alarming population are mostly unemployed in Africa. And then if you have these over the 50% of the population that are unemployed, it means that we are losing from the very key impact that youth can provide to the economic growth of the continent. And from the social or cultural perspective, the energy, the drive, the capacity for innovation as youth for agents, as youth for agents, change agents, and to drive decisions from policies to actions is still missing. You know, so unfortunately, despite this obvious reality that youth should be part of key decision-making processes, should be at the helms of affairs, lending their voice and advocating for this very substantive population. Most times we are seen as part of the problem, which is unfortunate, because the perception that our leaders have on the youth is that either our capacity are not up to date or measurable for us to be on those platforms, or that because of our youthful exuberance, when given the opportunity to be amongst those high-level sensitive decision-making platforms, we may allow our youthful exuberance or emotions take a better place in terms of decision-making. And by this, we may tend to give or make wrong decisions if given this opportunity. But this, I'm glad that this platform and this workshop has given youth, the youth parliamentarians, the opportunity for us to organize this kind of general assembly, for us to show the world that we are not just young. Though we may be young, our decisions are not wrong. And even if they are afraid that our decisions may be wrong, we are more informed, going by the technological advancements and our digital savvy. We are capable of contributing to sectorial development, especially as it pertains to water and sanitation. And because of this, AMCAL in its strategy 2018 to 2030 incorporated the youth and gender priority as one of its cross-cutting key priorities that should be focused on. And based on that, AMCAL has also went further to start the process of reviewing the already existing strategy that has been existing but has not really been implemented. And we have decided to include the youth, the gender, and the social inclusion aspects of our issues in the continent in that one document. And AMCAL hopes to, by this strategy, operationalize most of the issues that are facing the youth and the young people in Africa. I want to express, reiterate our appreciation as an organization, AMCAL, to the organizers of this event and then to charge us, young people, that we have the power to change the narrative. We are, of course, on the right direction, but we need to show from this, using this kind of platform and using this Africa focus session to show the key decision makers that we are not useless. We can do what they are doing, and we can even do it better. So I wish us the very best during the course of these presentations and deliberation. And we hope that this is going to be very interactive, and the outcomes of this meeting will drive the required change that we deserve as a continent and globally. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And may I request that we give Emmanuel a round of applause by way of a hand gesture. Thank you so much. I think that is a statement of hope, a statement of intent, but also a very well articulated proposition coming from the youth, particularly demonstrating the leadership that AMCAO continues to provide across Africa as a continent on water and sanitation sector, but not just that leadership with the youth, and the importance of working with the youth to, not just to occupy, but also set the agenda and the pace at which sector development is being done. And I also take from your statement, Emmanuel, that as the world, convenes from 2022 to take stock of the progress on the SDGs, the youth the role of the youth will be interrogated, given that this is the world's largest population, particularly in the case of Africa, but not just in terms of what they have been able to do, but what they are able to do moving forward to ensure that Africa attains SDG 6 by the year 2030. Many thanks once again, Emmanuel, for those very, very wise words. And I move to the next speaker, and this is our first presentation, which will be on the progress of water resources management in Africa. Now, this presentation will be made by Margaret Kironde, who is a water policy analyst and an environmental intern at the Water Institute in Tanzania. Just a little bit about Margaret. So Ms. Margaret is a water policy analyst and environmentalist, currently working as an intern at the Water Institute in Tanzania. Margaret previously served as a research intern at the African Water Association, AFWA, in Cote d'Ivoire, where she was responsible for analyzing the impacts of policies and utility management systems on the performance of water utilities in Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and among other countries. She has served as a program coordinator at the Young Women's Christian Association of Tanzania, ensuring that women, youth, and girls' rights are cared for within the context of environment and promoted to support sector development, particularly with regards to women and youth leadership rights within the water and sanitation sector. So Ms. Margaret, welcome to the floor.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Paul. I would first like to apologize. My internet is not very good, but I just hope I'll be able to manage. So distinguished guests, good afternoon. Greetings from Tanzania. And let me just start sharing my screen without wasting further time. Okay, so as the introduction said, that I'm going to present on the progress of water resources management in Africa. So first of all, I would just like to give a state of water resources. We see that while 67% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, only less than 2.5 of global water is fresh water. And most of fresh water is locked in ice caps and glaciers, and about 96% of all liquid fresh water can be found underground. And only less than 0.7 is available for human use. So we see that water, the one that is available for human use, is actually very limited resource. And so how is water connected to sustainable development? We all know that water is very important. We all know that we have had water, the different uses of water. So we see that water is a precious natural resource that is vital for life development and environment. And this was expressed by Dublin Principle in 1992, and this principle stands until today. And we also see that water is very critical instrument for both economic and survival. So as much as water is a limited resource and it's a scarce resource, we need to manage it very appropriately. Water is very important because it can be used to alleviating poverty, and it can save people from having to live without access to water and sanitation. So we see that water and poverty are actually connected. So for us to move forward, we need to actually manage water very properly. And when we refer to Sustainable Development Goal 6, we see that this goal seeks to ensure that safe drinking water and sanitation for all. And we see that the target's 6.1. This target, it measures the percentage of population using improved drinking water sources. And when we are talking of improved drinking water sources, when we are talking of safely managed water, we see that this is water that is actually accessible on premises, is the water that is available when needed, and it's the water that is free from contamination. So as I have said previously, that water is very important because water, just looking at it, it's actually connected to all 17 sustainable development goals. So if we need to bring prosperity to the continent, talking of Africa specifically, we see that water is a very crucial instrument. And when we come to the, what is the implication of water for Africa's development? So we see that it is estimated by United Nations Development Programs that Africa is the continent where poverty is expected to rise in the new century. While at the same time, we know that water is very important. It plays a vital role in responding to socioeconomic crises facing African continent. And Africa has been trying to solve these challenges by putting up different economic instruments. But however, we see that the success of these efforts depends on the flow of funds, but also on availability of sustainable water resources. That means we need to protect our water resources. And the challenges of not having adequate access to water in Africa, we see that there are different challenges that Africa is facing currently. We see there is high incidence of communicable diseases, but also due to this, this is actually reducing the economic productivity of the continent. But the continent, we know that Africa mostly depends on agriculture. So inadequate water resources, that means this is a constraint to improve the agricultural development and food security. So saying all of this, we see that the African development vision, it intends to provide a way. If we read it, like, it intends to provide a way of thinking about these problems so that the priorities of action are defined. So how far is Africa with regards to Sustainable Development Goal 6? We see that the 2018 Africa Sustainable Development Goal Index and Dashboard indicated that many countries in Africa are still not making adequate progress with respect to SDG 6. So Africa is it's progressing, but the progress is still very not adequate. So statistically, we see that globally, the population using safely managed services increased from 61 to 71%, and from 25% to 35% in low developing countries, where in sub-Saharan, we see that only 24% of population have access to safe drinking water, and only 28% have access to basic sanitation. So saying all of this, however, how are youth and water connected? Because we know that the topic here is we are interested on youth. We want to hear about youth. So we see that Africa is the youngest continent in the world, as we have heard before that 6% of the African population is actually below the age of 25. So with this, we see that actual water security and youth engagement are priority areas of Agenda 2063. However, youth in Africa are facing different challenges, but their challenges are even compounded by the lack of water access. So youth face different barriers in accessing water. They face economic barriers. The youth are not very well economic developed. There is issues of political barrier. We see that the water sector does not, it overlooks the needs of youth, but also sometimes it prevents their participation in design and delivery of WASH programs. But there are also cultural, social, human barriers that actually affects the participation of youth in water sector. And when we come to the Agenda 2030 and 2063, we see that water is at the center of sustainable development and economic growth. For Africa to achieve its target for the 2030 agenda, and for the African Union Agenda 2063, then we need great efforts and resources to achieve this. And when we are talking of resources, youth are among the most important human resource. So saying all of this, we really need to invest in youth, because if we need to achieve these targets, we need to invest in youth. As we know that Africa has a lot of youth, that means that is a good potential for development. And so let me take you through on what are the ongoing effects. We have seen that there are challenges, but what are African governments, what are the partners, development partners, CS, what are they doing to bring progress in water sector in Africa? So the efforts have been divided into 4. We see that we have investments, strategies, initiatives, and partnership. And when we talk of investments, there are massive investments that have been by African Development Bank in integrating water development and management, and this is through the Water Development and Sanitation Department in AFDB. So we see that AFDB lines up with global principles to scale up water sector in Africa to achieve water supply and sanitation outcome. This is for the benefit of women, youth, children, marginalized. So the bank supports Africa towards attaining water security through massive investment. And when we come to the strategies, we see that there are different strategies that are there to actually involve youth. And AMCAL, I will talk specific of AMCAL. We see that AMCAL believe that adequate and equitable access to water and sanitation is a critical contribution to Africa's development towards sustainable development. And so saying this, AMCAL has developed a policy for mainstreaming youth in water and sanitation. And this, the development of this policy has involved youth representatives and also partner organizations. But also the African Development Bank has a strategy from 2013 to 2022. This strategy, it stresses on the massive investments in integrated water development and management that they are central to sustainable water, food, energy security for green and inclusive growth. And when we come to initiatives, there are different water supply and sanitation programs across Africa. Just to mention a few, we have Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Initiative by African Development Bank. There's Improving Water Supply and Sanitation by GIZ. But also we have a AMCAL web-based reporting system. This system captures data on water and sanitation across the 55 member states of African Union using harmonized progress indicators. And so this online platform provides reporting on 7 different themes on water infrastructure for growth, managing and protecting water resources, water supply, sanitation, hygiene, wastewater, climate change, disaster risk reduction, governance and institution, financing and information management, and capacity development. And lastly, on the partnership, we see that different African governments have formed networks and collaborated with different partners, such as AMCAO, GIZ, AFDB, World Bank, USAID, just to mention a few, to ensure that water secure for Africa. So at the end, we see that water governance is very critical for creation of essential enabling environment for effective, efficient, inclusive, and sustainable management and development of water resources and provision of service. So African governments must put in place the necessary political, institution, and administrative rules, practices, and processes to which decisions are taken and implemented. Stakeholders articulate their interests and their concerns are considered, and decision makers are held accountable for water management. And so now coming back to youth. So how do we ensure that youth are actually engaged in empowering them in water sector? We see that youth.
2 minutes.
Okay. We need to engage youth as equal partners in sustainable development, because youth possess and bring enough energy that is potential to shape the better tomorrow and today. So we can engage youth through job creation, like build their capacity, recruit young staff in water sector, and let them spearhead the design, development, and implementation of water projects. There is issue of innovation. Youth are creative and innovative, and their ideas can contribute to solving water challenges. And talking of innovation, I would just like to encourage my fellow youth here that myself here with my teammates, we have developed a rural water filtration kit, which solves the challenges of water quality in rural African communities. And this has won several awards. So if you have an idea, just bring it into reality. We have youth voices. So the voices and contribution of youth in Africa, they can be used in shaping the narrative for building the better Africa. And what could be the possible area for collaboration with youth? We can collaborate with youth through education, research and information sharing, and social networking. Building the capacity of youth in water management and water security is important, so as we bridge the gaps, and also to make the youth more interested and aware on what is going on, so that they participate in the water sector. But in research and information sharing, we need to encourage young people to become more involved in research, so that they participate in bringing up knowledge, application of knowledge, but also promote their ideas in improving policy processes and water. And in the social networking, we see that with the current time that we're having, most youth are connected technologically. So we need a platform that can connect them to address water and sanitation challenges and solutions in their communities. And just to end my presentation, I would like to say, like, this is our future outlook, or that Africa is looking forward, that an Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on potential offered by African people engaged. So my dear youth, African development is in our hands. So we have to work together to bring Africa to a better place. Thank you so much.
And a round of applause to Margaret. Thank you so much, Maggie. That was very well detailed, well articulated, and a happy ending with a very clear call to action to the youth. Because of time constraints, I will request the next presenter to be rather brief. The final presentation is on the Africa sanitation and hygiene status. And the presenter will be Comfort Kanshio, also of the African Ministers' Council on Water. Comfort works at AMCAO as the Sanitation Support Officer, a position she has served for a period of about 2 years. And she has been involved in several research types around water quality and sanitation issues before. Comfort previously served the vulnerable groups in hard-to-reach areas in Nigeria to access improved sanitation services and clean water. She was also involved in community visits to raise awareness for increased investment in water sanitation and hygiene, and currently supports the development of the sanitation guidelines for developing national policies across African countries. Over to you, Comfort.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul, for the floor. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, distinguished members of youth. I would like to request to turn off my video so that the internet doesn't disrupt, with your permission, and go straight to the presentation because we are running out of time already. Thank you. Sorry. Can everyone see my screen, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you
Hello.
very much. Okay, thank you very much. So, without wasting much of the time, my name is Comfort Kanshio. I work for the African Ministers' Council on Water to support the development of the African Sanitation Policy Guidelines. And this afternoon here in Abuja is afternoon, so I'll be referring to the time here. So this afternoon, I would like to talk to us briefly about the sanitation landscape in the African continent, and then dive straight into what the African Sanitation Policy Guidelines are about. So my presentation today will follow the following outline: sanitation challenges in Africa, and enabling environment for sanitation, background of the African Sanitation Policy Guidelines, which I'll be referring to as the ASPG, the ASPG development process, the content, next steps. So, sanitation challenges in Africa. So I've categorized these into different categories. We have the health challenge, challenges in accessing safely managed sanitation, open defecation, and weak enabling environment. You would see that only 23% of healthcare facilities in sub-Saharan Africa have basic sanitation services. And safely managed sanitation, only 18% of the population in sub-Saharan Africa have access to safely managed sanitation. 20% of the population defecate in the open, and this is disturbing because that means feces are not properly contained from human contact, and even the ones that are contained, because they are not safely managed, it means the environment is contaminated and health of humans suffers as a result of that. You would also see under the health challenge that 525,000 deaths occur every year as a result of preventable sanitation-related diseases. Now, all of these problems are anchored on what we call the enabling environment. If the enabling environment, which are like the building blocks, are in place, then it would reduce the amount of health challenge. It will support so many people to be able to contain and safely manage their feces. And then open defecation will also be minimized to the barest minimum. So under the enabling environment, things like policies and strategies are inadequate. In most cases, they are not in place. And even when they are in place, they are not adequate. Capacity building, it's also a challenge. And financing, even if we have proper plans and strategies in place, if there are no financing to implement the plans, then we would move nowhere. And that is a big problem in the sector. Issue of institutional arrangement, who does what? Which ministry should lead issues around sanitation and hygiene? Those are some of the challenges of weak enabling environment. And from our UNGOR report, I just added these to show it. The UNGOR report, for those of you who are not familiar with it, you can Google it up. The 2019 UNGOR report also highlighted that issues of the enabling environment is a challenge across the continent. Progress is uneven, and without this, like I said earlier, progress will be difficult to make tangible progress in the sector. Now, in a bid to strengthen the enabling environment in the sector so that we will to put African countries on track to achieve the SDGs and the UNGOR commitment, AMCAL launched the development of the African Sanitation Policy Guidelines. The African Sanitation Policy Guidelines were conceptualized in 2017, and it is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. To be able to make sure that the development of the African Sanitation Policy Guideline is adequate, is inclusive, AMCAL constituted an executive committee. The executive committee is made up of World Health Organization, Speak Up Africa, and the Center for Water Security and Cooperation. Now, further to this, AMCAL established a group of task force members. The task force are a group of experts across Africa and globally to support the ASPG development process in providing technical inputs and reviewing the document as the development progresses. Now, to be able to be sure that what we are doing speaks to the challenges of the African continent, AMCAL made sure to launch an assessment. And this assessment covers 26 national sanitation policies across 26 countries in Africa. The policies that are reviewed for this assessment were obtained directly from the AU member states, and the policies assessed were developed between 1997 and 2016, because that was the policies available at that time. The results from the policy assessment further confirms the need to develop the ASPG document. As we go further, I would clarify on what exactly the ASPG is about. In addition to the sanitation assessment report, in addition to the policies reviewed, AMCAL conducted, this is just like a snapshot of the report, the results from the assessment report. So you would see that to my right, status of national sanitation policies, you would see that 61% of the 26 policies assessed were developed during the Millennium Development Goals. This is a bit of challenge because we are now in the SDG era, and the focus for the SDG era, the targets are not the same. So this is the reason why sanitation policies that are existing need to be upgraded to align.
3 minutes.
Thank you very much. So this is just an overview of the reports assessed. Now, further to that, AMCAL conducted stakeholder consultation meetings and across 12 countries, face-to-face meeting, and then we also had virtual meetings. Because of time, I will just run through this. I believe participants will be able to access the slides afterwards. Now, going to what the ASPG is about. The ASPG is designed to provide guidance to African governments on how to develop their sanitation policies. It is designed for policymakers, consultants, NGOs, whoever is involved in policy development. And the scope of the ASPG is limited to fecal waste and hygiene. Hygiene meaning menstrual hygiene management and hand washing with soap and water. The ASPG, like I said, is being developed through series of several consultation meetings to ensure that it addresses the sanitation challenges across the continent and even globally. Now, the ASPG is divided into 4 chapters. Chapter 1 is divided into 4 parts and 11 chapters. So chapter 1 talks about the scope of the guidelines, how to apply the guidelines. Chapter 2 talks about describes decision-making process and a step-by-step guide to support countries to review their sanitation policies. And chapter 3, I call chapter 3 the meat of the document, because this is where all the content that is required we require to include in sanitation policies are embedded. And then chapter 4 talks about implementation strategy. The chapter is very important because chapter 4 also tells us, differentiates what a policy should look like and what a strategy should look like. So many people tend to confuse that. And also it contains, the ASPG contains additional resources for people who want to take it up and use in their different countries. Now, following the development of the ASPG, I think I have, the good news is that the ASPG is about 85% completed. And right now we are at the stage of finalizing the document and to produce it, so print it and then ready for dissemination. So we are planning for the ASPG launch on the 10th of June 2001. Announcements will go out regarding that across all the AMCAL platforms. And we will conduct series of stakeholder engagement to disseminate the document and to support member states to uptake the document. We've also developed a demand creation tool, a demand request tool, if you like, where countries request, countries are welcome to request for support, and then they will be given the sort of support they need. Now, I recognize that this is a youth platform, and I wanted to bring to our notice that AMCAL recognizes the role the youth have to play in leadership, creativity, and innovation and awareness creation. So in its strategy, just like the opening remarks made by Emmanuel referred to, the strategy aims to, under the strategy 2018 to 2030, the cross-cutting pillar 4 focuses to strengthen gender equality and youth empowerment. Also, even at the African Union Commission, they've recognized the need for the youth to be empowered and to minimize the issue of gender inequality. And so in 2015, was declared a year of women's empowerment for youth, and then women and youth empowerment and development toward achieving the Africa Agenda 2063. Now, how the youth can get involved. From our strategy, we've mentioned that the youth, AMCAL is happy to work with partners that are focused on youth-based organizations. And then AMCAL is happy to engage youth in our events. As you know, AMCAL coordinates, conducts the Africa San and Africa Water Week. AMCAL is happy to engage the youth in all of those platforms. But I've just mentioned the initiative that AMCAL is spearheading at the moment, and we welcome how the youth can participate. Organizations available to partner with AMCAL to be able to create awareness in this regard. So organizations here present, the ASPG will be launched in June, on June 10th. You are welcome to approach AMCAL and mention what you can do, how you want to support the process. If it's an area of awareness creation, dissemination, innovation, whatever it is, you can do. So youth here present, we have the platform. This is what we can do with organizations present. So it is up to also the youth here to identify ways that they can support in disseminating the Africa Sanitation Policy Guidelines. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
And a final round of applause to Comfort and all our presenters. We overshot into the Q&A session by about 12 minutes. So we really don't have much time. I will go straight into opening the plenary for the question and answer session. In the meantime, we encourage that you drop questions, please, through the chat box. And I will request Margaret, Emmanuel, and Comfort, the three presenters, to also share their contacts, email, WhatsApp, and other social media handles on the chat box, so that this conversation, the dialogue, can be sustained far beyond this Africa Focus session today. Now, I will request Emmanuel to please come in first to respond to any specific questions that were sent on the chat box that relates to youth engagement, particularly in the context of our service offerings as African Ministers Council on Water in Africa. Over to you, Emmanuel, if you may pick a few questions that are relevant to your opening remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, moderator. The question that was posed to AMCAL was posed by Tito Awe from Nigeria. How were the youth involved in the policy development selected? And so I responded in the chat box, but maybe to expound on that, the strategy that my colleague Margaret made mention of, and that I made mention of, was developed in 2013. And of course, it involved key players young water professionals, the member states, representatives from the member states, and it was quite rich in consultation. But then that document is the document that AMCAL is reviewing as we speak. We have just engaged the services of an expert to work with AMCAL and the member states to revise this strategy. And the opportunity for the African community and relevant youth networks and stakeholders in the sector is still very much open. And we have dropped our email addresses, Comfort and I, and you can reach out to us. You can also reach out to us via our platform at AMCAL. We will be uploading all of those information. But yes, we would have this strategy this time around. Engage or consult, benefit from the rich consultative processes. Thank you. Another question is there any exchange partnership between AMCAL and the European Union, since it can be quite beneficial for both groups and people of both sides to learn? I would say that yes, AMCAL is of course open to partnerships globally and locally, nationally, regionally. But then my colleague, the director of programs, can throw more light on those strategic partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for attending to that question. Just to add, as you have assigned me to, we do have a framework through which we coordinate and and engage in exchange activities with the European Union, particularly through JRC, the Joint Research Commission of the European Union. So we've had a few exchanges, particularly on issues of water quality, social engagement aspects related to water quality development, and many other aspects related to water sector development in general. So this is a partnership that is still, at the very formative stages. But of course, we welcome many other opportunities that may be proposed and suggested from both ends to ensure that as many people as possible, especially the young people, benefit from these exchanges between Africa and other continents. Over to you, panelists. Laurie, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to react on Emmanuel, what he mentioned about how they collected, AMCAL collected, information from the youth and to build their strategy, your strategy. And I'm just thinking, and this is like one invitation that I would like to do to AMCAL. ISW on our side, we also did the same process. And I know multiple organizations are also collecting, inputs from the youth and to build a youth strategy and to have a better view on how youth should be active in the water sector. And as organization, of course, we have limited resources. It's like something that any organization face. And I'm just thinking that if we put together those efforts, it will be way stronger because we will have a bigger view and a broader view of this specific aspect, youth engagement in the water sector. So I think we would gain a lot from working together and bringing these information together. And at the end of the day, youth will also benefit from that. So it's just one invitation to AMCAL. We've been in contact before, of course, but yeah, I think there's a lot to build on. And also really thank you for this so interesting session, just by the way.
Thank you so much, Laurie. Thank you. And we would.
I've got a question from Elise. I think your hands are up. If you may come in with your question, please. I'm afraid we can hardly hear you. I'm afraid we can't hear you well. I can take any other question as he sorts his audio. Comfort, Emmanuel, Margaret, if you need to emphasize or re-emphasize any point at this point. Yeah, I see another hand is up. Ojo, please. Ojo, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to say thank you to Comfort for such a wonderful presentation. I joined towards the end of your presentation, so I want to ask if I understood you very well. You said AMCAL is trying to review policy for the government for government in Africa so that they can implement it, to make the country better. So my question is, what is the organization doing to make sure that these policies are being implemented by the government? Because I think giving people suggestions about how to develop a thing is one, the people accepting it and implementing it is another. So, and that is the most important thing. So what is the organization doing to make sure that the government in Africa are able to put this into their work?
Maybe I can take one or two last questions since we are constrained by time, so that Emmanuel can address all of them as part of his closing remarks. I will give a chance to Bolwatito. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Bolwatito, your hand is up. The chance is yours to ask your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. You really tried. Okay, so my question is to Comfort. At the conclusion of your presentation, you made a statement where you said you are open to suggestions on how youth can get involved and how they can participate. I'm aware, or in 2018, we were presented with a policy and strategy that AMCAL had or has for youth in the water and sanitation sector in Africa. In that policy document, some of the challenges in engaging youth to get involved in AMCAL's activities were raised. However, in the policy document or the strategy document, you also talked about why we need to focus on the youth. So I want to find out if actions on that document are being carried moving forward. However, in 2018, it was proposed that the strategy should be, and the policy document should be revised because that was already, would I call it outdated? Maybe not, but since then, we've not had any specific thing with regards to youth involvement or youth engagement. I know Emmanuel has said that something is going to be done moving forward, but is it specifically on youth focus in AMCAL, or is it just for the general sector in Africa? That's my question, because having a strategy on how to engage the youth is going to be a start to engage the youth. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. And I will take a question from Francis Akwa from Ghana, and request that Comfort comes in to respond to the question that was directed to her, and then Emmanuel will respond to the rest of the questions and also give his closing remarks. Over to you, Francis. Francis Akwa. I guess he has dropped his question into the chat box. So Emmanuel, you may want to check the chat box as well to respond to Francis' question. And he says, is there any organization that helps or partners with individual youths who wants to build potable water projects for its community, like for its community which lacks good drinking water? So over to you, Comfort, and then Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you. I think it's Ayo who asked the question. Thank you, Ayo, for the very important question. So I think just to be sure, your question is, how is AMCAL making sure that countries implement the guidelines that we are developing? Because developing the document is one, and ensuring that countries accept it is another thing. So I'm glad you mentioned that you joined towards the tail end of the presentation. So before the ASPG was developed, before we got to the point where we are, the ASPG involved series of consultation, and it's with member states, because we know that they are the ones to take up the document. So we made sure that their challenges are being reflected in the document. Now, we didn't just stop that. We didn't just stop at ensuring that the challenges across the continent is reflected in the document. We also asked them during the consultation, we made requests to member states to say, what sort of support would you want AMCAL to give to enable you adopt the document? And member states came back, the countries came back to tell us what they foresee AMCAL doing to be able to ensure that they take up the ASPG adequately. So because of that, we have gone ahead to also develop a demand request tool, a request tool for countries to make requests for us to request that they want to take up the ASPG, and then we would give them the required support. So we need countries. Now it depends on the countries. Countries are different, the contexts are different, and the problems are different. The sort of needs are different, which is why that demand tool is very important. So once we get the demand tool, we are working. We have partners, we are strategized partners, and together with the member states in different locations to support countries. So again, it's awareness creation on the importance of the document. And then once countries indicate interest, we have resources, human resources available to support countries to take the document up. Already our assessment also tells us the status of the sanitation policies across the continent. So if you like, we know, we kind of have idea of which country needs the document, and then which countries will be potential uptakers also of the document. If that answers your question, I can move to the next person. Okay. So Bolu talked about to what extent has AMCAL implemented the 2018 strategies set on youth. I think that was the
it was a
first
2013.
2013, exactly, because I was just wondering, there's no, 2013 strategy. So I think during Emmanuel's opening remark, he did reference that strategy. So where we are at the moment, the strategy for youth is developed, and then we have that of gender. So right now, quite a number of the content, particularly in the gender strategy, are a bit obsolete, I would say. So we are at the verge of updating the document. So, and once that update is done, and once we upgrade that document, that is when we would then begin implementing the exact activities on that strategy. But the call on youth that I made was based on the AMCAL 2018-2030 strategy. So AMCAL has explicitly said it is AMCAL is happy to engage with youth-based organizations. And the request, on the other hand, the request I made for youth to get involved, it's for the ASPG now. Like I said, the ASPG will be launched in June 10th. And so it is for the youth in the house right now to see what role can they really play. But for AMCAL, we are open for youth to come up and say, okay, we want to support awareness creation. We want to support to disseminate the ASPG in our different countries. We want to support different, like you said, youth have energy of innovation. So we are happy for those information to come in. So that is the call. But in terms of the strategy, right now we are at the verge of updating that strategy. But again, like you know, the strategy that we are upgrading right now will be aligned to the overall AMCAL strategy. So it's the open doors, if you like, that AMCAL is giving is not out of place, because even the strategy that we are developing will speak to the overall institution strategy. So thank you very much. If Emmanuel, you can jump in and the moderator.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Comfort. I think your question also addresses the question that was asked by Samuel from Liberia. And as I usher in my colleague Emmanuel to answer the remaining set of questions, it was a pleasure moderating this session since I won't be allowed to again speak after the closure by Emmanuel. I wish to very sincerely thank the three panelists, our chief guest, Emmanuel, and youth focal person for AMCAL, Comfort Kanshio, the sanitation officer, and Margaret from Tanzania, and a partner in progress and development to AMCAL and the water resources policy and experts. All of the panelists are youth, as you have seen, And it demonstrates utmost commitment that African Ministers' Council on Water takes the water and sanitation business seriously, but most importantly, the youth agenda across the continent seriously. Thank you so much once again to Laurie and Emmanuel and everybody else, and over to you, out.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, moderator, and the person of Dr. Paul Orengo. Dr. Paul is our Director of Programs here at the African Ministers' Council on Water. And just a brief background on what AMCAL is, or our core business. AMCAL's mandate was given to us by the heads of state and government during the AU Summit in 2008, in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. And the responsibilities for AMCAL to monitor and report to the heads of state on the status of the water and sanitation progress in Africa. And by these, the responsibility for water and sanitation progress lies on AMCAL, the shoulders of AMCAL. So if for any reason you are confused as to what AMCAL is about or what we do, we will type in the chat box our website, and I've sent the social media links that you can browse to get more information. But then one thing we can assure you is that if there is any information or anything that you want to get across to your decision makers, to your ministers responsible for water and sanitation at country level, then AMCAL is the one-stop shop that you can run to or you can request from. And that is to say that everything we are doing here at AMCAL is not just for the purposes of implementing activities or for just marking projects as done, but then they have substantive backing by the heads of state and government and the ministers responsible for water and sanitation. That is to say that our voices can be heard and will be heard at those key decision-making platforms. And as my colleagues have spoken, Comfort, Margaret, and Dr. Paul, I want to sincerely, on behalf of AMCAL, appreciate every participant who took out time to participate in this meeting. And just to inform us that this is only the entry point. This is the beginning of greater things or greater collaboration or a gateway to more opportunities for partnerships to be built. And then I would encourage us to reach out to any of us or to AMCAL so that we can take up these discussions from here. And then to my colleagues in the communications department, they are here. And we would, from this moment going forward, try to release informations and updates on what the youth and gender and social inclusion unit of AMCAL is doing. And then as we are open to more collaboration and partnership towards achieving the SDGs, the Agenda 2063 vision, the Africa Water Vision, and all other continental and global visions, we want to say thank you, and we appreciate your time and look forward to achieving the Africa we want. Thank you so much. Thank you.